Okay, let me show you how I would divide up the sections on a page using style sheets and the div tag. And what you got to kind of first come up with is how many sections on the page you want to work with. So in this case where we have the Huckleberry Finn and this page, the text that we're going to work with, we do have three distinct areas. We have what we call as the header section basically. We have the main section of paragraph, and then we have like a footer section. So in theory you can actually set up three sections that will help you control each of those. So if you're going to put in what we call, they talk about the box properties and that, what you're going to have to do is you start over here in your body section, and first thing you have to do is create a container. A container. The container is going to, it's basically, you can consider it as the page, and then inside that container you're going to have separate sections set up. Now, for some people, it's hard to fathom because they don't see the content. You have to kind of see the placeholders. And when you see the placeholders, you know the physical size, the width and height, and everything else becomes easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a div section, and I'm just going to put in my container here. I'm going to do ID equals, and again, you can give it any name. Most of the time you'll see it say box or you'll say container. So I'll do that. Now, since this is supposed to encompass the whole page, I'm going to put a closing one right before the closing body, closing div tag. Now, then I need to put the other sections in. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in another div tag, ID equals, quotations, header. Again, heading, if you want to use that, or title. Well, probably don't want to use title on that part because title is a separate tag. And don't forget to put closing div tag. Okay, now I want to put one for the main section. And don't forget the closing div tag. And I'm going to do one for the footer. Okay, once I have my section set up, then I can copy my text over. So I'm going to take my heading information. I'm going to bring it over here and put it within the head section. Just doing copy and paste. Now you still need to tag the information that's within this section, okay? So I'm going to put in like an H1. And again, as you're working with HTML, don't forget your closing tags. You have to get in the habit of putting the closing tags in. As soon as you put an opening tag in, always get in the habit of putting a closing tag. So now I'm going to copy the main paragraph in. Okay. Now this is a regular paragraph, so I'm going to put a P tag in, and I'm going to put a closing P tag. And then of course my footer information. Okay. Again, regular. Now you could use the heading if you want to do on this. It doesn't matter. I'm going to put a P tag because you can format it any way you want. Okay. Now once I have this set up in divisions, I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now when I look at it on my page, let's take a look. That's nothing major. All it did was put in here's my heading 1, heading 2 styles in my paragraph. And you'll see some spacing in between because the tags I've already added. So now it's time to go in and control more of the properties that we have here. So now we want to actually apply the styles to the div sections. That would be the container, the header, the main, and foot. So the first thing I want to do is I want to control the width of the page of the container. So I'm going to come in here And since I'm working with a div and I'm using ID, I gotta go in and point to that exact section. To do that, you start off with a pound sign, type in the word container, put in the curly bracket there, press your enter key, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply use width, colon, and let's do 960 pixels. Okay, so now we're basically setting up the width. This is where each section inside that container you have to kind of know the width and height because it makes your life a little bit easier to set up the layout. That's why we have you sketch the layout and think about it before you actually create it. Now let's go ahead and put in another one. Let's put in our header. And let's do a width of, let's not go all the way across. Let's do 960, let's do 500. And let's put in a background color, just so we can see it. Now, if you're using hexadecimals, which I suggest that you do use, hexadecimals are easy to work with, and it is the preferred format when you're adding color. Now, if you use red, if you type in the word red, you probably will get red, but the problem with that is that each browser interprets the red for a different color. So that's what you have to kind of watch out for, is because when you think about it, what is red to you? And everybody will have a different meaning of red. Is it a little darker red, a little brighter red? And that's where browsers will go in and interpret the colors differently. And when you use a hexadecimal color, your life is a little bit easier because you're pretty much saying this is more specific. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a hexadecimal. And again, what I want to do is just basically indicate so you can see the background. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. And we'll come over and click on reload. Let's see what happens. See how you're controlling that section. I'm putting in a width. I'm putting in a background color so you can see that. And then what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to put in, for the other parts, the same aspect. Now again, I'm just picking out a couple colors that I know that will help us be able to read. But I just want to show you the different sections. So if I resize this, you can see that it is going across 960 pixels. Now you can go back in and you can manipulate each section if you wanted to. So if I go to the background into the header section and I add the aspects of margin, and I save this, notice what will happen is that it will control the spacing between sections. So when I come over here to the left and click on refresh, you'll see that the spacing, the section moves over from the border, and sometimes you want to do that because it's too close to the border that you're working with. So you can go in, you can add margin, you can add padding, you can add width, you can add height. You can even try the float option and see what the float option does. So again, this is what we're doing, is we're taking our page and we're setting up in sections. So we're going in and adding a div section. We have to name it, because if you don't name it, which div section are you referring to? So we have to name it. And what we're doing is then we're creating a style to apply to that. And this is just a start of where you start positioning things, because then you'll learn how to work with the position attribute or property that allow you to position the sections. and have things floated next to each other and so forth. But you got to get it under control that your page will be set up into sections, and that is done by the div tag. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense.